Hello, everyone. My name is Rafal, and I'd like to welcome everyone to my Headshot Photography podcast. Today, I have special guests from Ireland, Mark Duffy. We've been knowing each other for quite some time. I've been following your work for, well, very, very long time. You have successful YouTube channel. You're educator. You're an amazing photographer. And I just want to thank you for joining this podcast because I have tons of questions. You are living on the other side of Atlantic Ocean, and I know we talk a little bit before we jump in to this podcast about how things look like in Ireland and Europe when it comes to photography, and that's why I want to basically discuss some of those stuff because it seems like there's a lot of differences. There's different approach to a lot of things. So yeah, thank you for joining, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Nice one. Was absolutely delighted to get invited onto your podcast because you're up there as one of my favorite photographers. So
Oh,
I'd be looking at your I'm just looking at your intro and I'm like, that's what I want my portfolio to look like.
well, you
It's
have amazing studio. When I look at your stuff, I'm like, I gotta talk to you how to make this look like. I want to make my place look like yours. So
If you
maybe,
just saw what was sitting over here off camera, it's literally at the minute I have it. I have just like it's a mess. If that many products sent to me to do reviews for YouTube, I've just
okay.
this room is boxes at the minute. So it's
Well,
more of a case of just moving the food around the plate.
but you know how to make this place look clean, right?
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly. Yeah.
cares what it's hidden, and nobody cares, what it's. I think all photographers we have mess when it comes to our gear and stuff because it's put in every open storage we have. It's kind of funny, like, I have shit everywhere, right? Like,
Yeah.
underneath the bed, whatever you look at. Okay.
I
But
ran out
that's,
of space in this room the minute I got into photography. It's a
yeah, yeah,
minute I got into photography. I no longer had room. And like this room is designed not for photography, it's designed for a drum kit because
okay.
I was a freelance drummer for years and I had problems with a neighbor when I was growing up with calling what we would know as the guards is known as the police. He'd constantly call the police on us.
Yeah.
So when myself and my wife were buying houses, we wanted a house that would have a garage that I could convert into a home
Mhm.
studio, so I would never have those issues again. So yeah, this room has been treated externally and internally for sound and stuff. So you can play a drum kit in here, and the neighbors won't even hear it, and
Right.
it lends itself to when I'm doing videos, I can be confident that I'm going to have decent
Yeah.
sound, at least
It's
anyway.
kind of interesting because I've talked to few photographers lately who are also musicians, and it's
Mm,
always fascinating me, like, because there's a completely two different genres of, just the arts, right? This is more about
absolutely.
hearing and sound, I think, and then you have the visual thing, right? And they can somehow combine those things, or I don't know, they can learn from those two things, and then they can, be good at both of them, which is kind of fascinating. I don't know. I'm sure you know this photographer Pete Coco, right? Like he's also a musician, and then like he's successful one too, which is also kind of interesting. And he also is amazing photographer at the same time, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and
I wish I could have
even
those.
it Donna did it on YouTube. He was a sound engineer. Peter Lindgren's a guitar player.
Hmm.
Peter McKinnon plays drums. Chris Howe plays guitar.
Hmm.
Trying to think of all the others I've spoken
Oh,
with
yeah, yeah.
over the. Now I've never spoken with Peter McKinnon, but I have spoken with the rest of them. There's quite a few. It is absolutely surprising, and the same is in Ireland as well. I know up in Northern Ireland, a lot of the people who work in the production side of things for the BBC are all musicians. Some of them actually
Mhm.
still are, performing wedding bands. There's
Oh,
like
wow.
bass players, and they're sound engineers during the day because the BBC work doesn't have them working on the weekends,
Hmm.
or not usually. So yeah, but there is like when you start working all those programs, especially when you go down the video side of things, you know that them timeline based programs all have a very similar overlap. Pro Tools overlaps with Premiere Pro. Even actually Premiere Pro's audio comes from Adobe's Audition, which is when Adobe bought over Cool Edit Pro, which is what the DJs used to use in the early 2000s. DJ, an uncle of mine is a DJ, and he would have done remixes, and that's the program he would have used. So there's loads of overlaps. But the great
Hmm.
thing from the musician side of things is it gives you that discipline because you're trying to, with me with drumming, I'm trying to figure out what to do in my hands. Like I did traditional grip, so I have a stick here. So my left hand looks like this here, so it looks a little bit weird. So there's a little bit of a learning curve on that. So you just, you need to spend the time, um, just being patient with yourself, failing
Mhm.
constantly failing. You might fail a couple of thousand times in the evening, and that's a really good practice. And you go
Mhm.
on to day two, and it's the same, and it's the same, and it's the same. And you go 6 months later down the road, and you're still failing, but you're now failing on different things you couldn't do before. And you stop and you play a song, and you go, oh, you know what? I remember when I couldn't do that. But that's what, and I always find you have to do that with photography too. You have to just sit back and say, what can I do now that I couldn't do 6 months ago? And
Yeah.
that's how you keep yourself going because you will get frustrated with it. And I get
Oh
frustrated
yeah.
all the time, especially with, because I tackle so many different disciplines, from product to
Mhm.
headshots to everything. And I try to get it as good as I can and get better at it every time as well.
Yeah.
And talking to yourself or anyone else as well to try and get some little tips and stuff. Like the biggest tip I
Absolutely.
got for headshots was don't let the kicker shine off the nose. Didn't know that. Now I can't look at it. Like, oh,
You
because
know what? We could have a discussion about it because I know people are just they just breaking apart every image and they try to
yeah,
find those little flaws. And I had this situation not even a long time ago that the light just spilled a little bit over and hit the subject nose. And I got such a backlash from people, like, how could you do that? Like, I'm like, you know what, it's not end of the day, like, I know you see it, but it's not
mm,
something that you should really kind of like losing your mind. And I know in this industry, and when you talk to other photographers, they are definitely kind of breaking apart every image and then try to look at every element. And if there's one little flaw, all of a sudden they want to cancel this whole thing. And then I think it's too much. Like, we have to just give ourselves a little bit of break sometimes, and don't
absolutely.
kind of like just be too particular. And I like most of the clients, they don't even see it, like. And also you can remove the stuff in Photoshop if it's just too overwhelming. But I don't think it's a big of a deal. I think we have to look at images from a little bit. I would say we have to take a couple steps back, and then don't just enjoy the images, not just like breaking them into pieces and then try to like
Exactly.
really.
Especially when it's someone's photo, you know what I mean? Because for me is yeah, okay, you might see that. You might see the kicker just kick off the nose. But then you have to think to yourself, what's the expression saying? Like, is it a killer expression? Because for me, you could be the greatest person for lighting someone. You could have the greatest lighting, just the eye and setup for lighting everyone perfectly. But if you
Mhm.
can't get them to express, you're not really. That's half.
Yeah,
That's majority of your job, really. Like, you know what I mean. Like,
yeah.
you can learn in some instances you can learn lighting setups, get in there, do it, but then the rest of your job is to get that expression, whether it's making them laugh or whatever
Whatever.
tactics that we use for
Absolutely.
doing that. So I'm usually very forgiving, especially then you look at movies, and they're going to have the kicker let up in such a way, and it doesn't matter who the actor is, they could turn in such a way. They're not going to go cut. Can you not do that? When you're doing that there, can you not do that? Like, okay, you're going 35 degrees. We just want you to go 30.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
imagine saying
exactly.
that? Now do the performance again. No, it's not going to happen. Not a
Exactly.
chance.
But that's also, part of our job, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
sometimes we just like, well, because we do this every single day, most of the time, we
Mm,
becoming so picky about every element, right? And that's sometimes, I think, just getting to the point that it's just too much, right? And we have to give
yeah.
ourselves a little bit of so let's kind of do step back and
Okay.
tell me a little bit about your journey when it comes to photography, because like, we know already you're a musician. So
Yeah.
how did you get into photography? Like, what was your kind of path into photography? And then I want to kind of dive in also a little bit more, but we're gonna leave that for a little bit later because you do all sorts of different stuff, right? But
Mhm.
we're gonna touch this a little bit later. Let's talk a little bit. How did you get into this whole thing?
Yeah. So, the full background is drumming since I'm 14. Studied music in college. Dropped out of college. Didn't finish that, and just was working different things and being in bands. Someone needs to design the poster. you know,
Okay.
to show that you're playing at the band, you know, you're playing at a bar, you know. And so I took that upon myself, started learning Photoshop, and recession hits
Mhm.
2008. There's no gigs, there's no work. I'm at home, bored out of my mind, and I'm teaching myself more and more. Come 2020, oh sorry, 2010, not 2020. Hear me? Come 2010, I did a small little associate course, about 6 months
Mhm.
long, for web design, and got a job in the second largest um, bookies in Ireland. So Paddy Power are the biggest bookmakers in Ireland, and they're one of the biggest in the world. Boy Sports are the next ones down, and I talked my way into a graphic design job with them, and I worked with them for 7 years. I
Oh
grew
wow.
all the way up to lead designer. I was a UX designer with them for a while as well. They offered me full UX, but the money wasn't there. And through that growth of loving it, and and developing such as a graphic designer, I grew to hate it as well, and left the company, went to another one, found that it's just the same attitude being thrown at us, and in the meantime was growing to love photography. And I did, from my travels as a drummer. So I was a freelance drummer for about 12 years. So I would fill in for wedding bands. So when a drummer needs a night off, I get the call, and it's one of those jobs you can't advertise. You can't tell that I'm with Blue Moose. That's one of the big bands in Ireland. I'm with Blue Moose or the Seducers or Big Generator. You couldn't list that you're there, because there's no rehearsals. A lot of times they don't even give you the set list, so the wedding couples aren't going to want to hear the absolute truths. Now, just
Wow.
going to put it out there as well. That didn't happen with Blue Moose. That didn't happen with them lads. Them lads would be totally covered. But there are other bands that I won't name that would happen with, had happened loads of times. And so it's one of those things that they don't want to admit it. So you can't advertise. So it's all internal. It's all word of mouth. So I went for
Mhm.
years through word of mouth on that. And throughout the years of just going to different areas in Ireland, they'd hear my accent, that I come from a county called Loud, and they were like, "Are you a Loud man?" And I'm like, "Yeah." How's the north? Now, for anyone who doesn't know from Ireland, over the years there was the troubles between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, where I'm from. We won't get into too heavy enough, but where I'm from is a rough enough area when it comes to that. There was involvement with the IRA heavily, so we got a bad reputation for it. So you get it all the time. So I decided to create a time lapse video about the town I'm from, called a town called Dundalk. We're home with the Corrs. That's what they're from, same town as myself. And we in the county of Louth, we've the largest number of heritage sites in all of Ireland outside of Dublin. Yet we've no tourism, and this is what I've been fighting. I've been fighting for this for years. So in 2016, January 2016, I released a time lapse video. I did it through with a GoPro. I did a bit of hyperlapsing in it as well, and it went viral. No one in Dundalk had really ever heard of a time lapse. They watched the video and it just went,
Mhm.
and loads of photographers got on to me. By the end of January, I owned the camera because I just had guys mailing me going, "Stop wasting your time with those GoPros. Get yourself a DSLR." So I got myself a Canon 650D. I got a kit lens with it. I got an 85mm lens with it, and something else. Sold all of the lenses and got myself a Takina 11 to 16, because I'm really good at researching stuff and buying stuff secondhand. And then I went down the rabbit hole of landscape photography. And when I was starting to hate work as a graphic designer, my outlet was I was just getting through the job to research and just get my time. As soon as I finished work, get out there and go shoot sunset somewhere. Doesn't matter if it was local or I had to travel 2 hours, was just whatever idea I had in my head, go get it done. And the following started picking up fairly quickly in Instagram. And by 2018, I released my own book about Loud on all the
Mhm.
heritage sites. And by halfway through 2019, I was on the pursuit to go full time on my own. I went full time in January 2020, thinking this is a great idea. Come March, this is not a good idea. But the thing is, I was halfway out of a business. I joined a company, and they knew that they were a stepping stone for me to go full time as a photographer. So I was only with them for 3 or 4 days a week anyway. So I was able to get the payment and stuff, the government payment that came in through that. So that
Mhm.
helped me loads with the COVID. And then I just used the time to work on my portfolio. I wasn't going to sit and go back after that and go, I wasted my time. I worked anytime I could get to a shop. If I was allowed to a shop, I would get the stuff I needed to get. And I did loads of stuff from, I think I did like a cup of coffee with biscuits and whiskey bottles that I had, expensive whiskey bottles that I had and stuff like that, and just try to just go above and beyond and push the means of this very small room that I'm in. This is a 11 foot by 12 foot room. It is less
Looks
than
big.
ideal, but you make work what you have, like, you know. So,
Yeah.
and it was for me. It was all about learning and then mastering what I learned. So get the mistakes done here and then work on it. So you know, where people were thinking, "Oh, you must have done that on Monday and posted on Tuesday," and in reality, it was I might have been working on it from 2 weeks ago, did the full edits, hated it, reset the whole thing, found the flaws in it, and
Mm.
did it again, and just keep on doing that. And what you see in the end is the final product. In some cases, I got it done in the day. Some cases, it took weeks to get done, and it's just through learning. But it's one of those things unless you're on a podcast like right now, you don't need to. You never really need to admit it, you know. So it's not
Yeah.
something I've overly ever admitted, but I wouldn't hide it either. Like, you know, it's the learning curve. We don't, like, as a musician, you don't turn around and say to someone, "Oh, I'm going to play this Slayer song. It's taken me 1,600 hours to learn it." Like, no one
Absolutely. I
cares.
watched recently this quite interesting video clip, and someone was interviewing Ed Sheeran, and I know probably this is, like, some people like him, some people don't, whatever. But
Yeah,
he says something which kind of like hit me quite hard, and he says that, a lot of artists, they talk about success, right? Like, how to be successful, and all this, stuff, about, how to basically just get to the top of whatever you're doing. But he says something that, we don't talk much about failures, right? And then for him, whole this journey about, learning the music and writing the songs and all, it's always all failure. Like, he was just like failure after failure after failure. And that's what you said. And you just like do one little step forward, you do 5 steps back, and then again 1 step
yeah,
forward, 5 steps back, right? And he says, like, we should promote failure. And I know, like, he says, like, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but that's how you learn, how it's the whole process, right? And this is like this whole
exactly.
repetitive thing over and over and over and over again. And as I 100% agree with you that, sometimes we do things and we just hated it, and you just like, we think we waste our time, but we actually we didn't, right? We've learned
Yeah,
something from it, and then we're not going to do this mistake again, and we're going to try to improve it. So yeah,
exactly. I actually think in that, did he mention 10,000 hours?
something
Is that
like
the
that.
one where he
Yeah.
mentioned? Yeah, he mentioned something about like when you've done something 10,000 times. I think it is. That's when you've mastered. I think that was.
Yes.
I remember there is a quote from something recently I have heard where he says mentions about doing something 10,000 times as well. Like, so, and he's totally right. He is absolutely right. You
Yeah.
know,
So,
and like musicians and photographers, everyone creative, we are the most overcritical of ourselves. So, you know, just we criticize ourselves for everything. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if we
absolutely.
didn't cross the road right, we'd be criticizing ourselves. You know, just everything. I didn't drink that drink right, or it doesn't matter. Like, you know, I could have done it better. I could have done it better. Or you focus on you focus too much on the path that it took you to get there than, you know, enjoying it. Like, so
Mhm.
yes, it's tough, but you know, you're doing something you love, and you have to remember that it's fun. It's way better for me. It's way better than sitting in an office. You know.
Absolutely. Well, because your brain works all the time, right? Like, I think when you have some kind of jobs where you have to do the same thing over, and you don't really have to put mind into it, well, it's just killing you, right? But even though
Yeah,
the stuff what we do is frustrating most of the time, and most of the time things don't work, um, at the end of the day, at some point we reach the level where we've create something which we like, right? It doesn't happen often,
exactly. Yeah.
as again, but you working on your skills, and you working on the knowledge, you working on all sorts of stuff. So let me kind of switch the gears and tell me a little bit more about, because you do a lot of stuff, like you do video, you do amazing time lapses, you do portraiture, you do product photography. It was your conscious decision that you're going to go to all those different genres of photography, or this is just the reason behind it? And then I'm kind of like guessing and suspecting why you've done it, because I think each genre gives you some new skills. But can you kind of tell me a little bit more about how you jumping from one thing to another? And it seems like you master most of them, because you're pretty good at all of those little. Well, you know what, you know
I'm
what
taking
you're
that. I'm
doing,
taking that.
right? Like, and I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
experimenting, but that doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you do, right? but you've reached a level where you're controlling what you're getting. It's not like you're just hoping for the best. You have certain amount of knowledge which you're applying to your images, and then they look
Yeah.
good, and you know exactly what the outcome's going to be. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there's two reasons have brought me that way. Two things have brought me to that. The extensive years of being a jack of all trades drummer. So
Mhm.
you can be, prime example is the people would use for from a music standpoint. It'd be like Lars Ulrich from Metallica. He was really good at what he did, and we won't look at what he's done now, but in the past. But you take him out of that, and he's not so good. Where you look at a drummer like Steve Gadd, the greatest session drummer of all time, has played on over 4,000 records. He's not suited for heavy metal, but he would give it a good go. But he's been on, like, Paul Simon. His list is absolutely endless. So I even have it on my website that I want to be photography's answer to Steve Gadd. That's where I want to be. And for me, I felt that yes, it's great to master a discipline, but to be a master, you should try and do them all, because there's similarities between them all. Everything is light works the same for everything. It's just,
Mhm.
you just have to figure out what suits what, really. Like, so I've gotten pretty good at reverse engineering photos. When I'm looking at photos, I have an idea of where I need to look to kind of figure out where that light was coming from and how that light was produced. Um, Still working on it. Still not, it's not perfect. Like, but there's, as you say, it's more experimentation than guesswork. You know what I mean? You're not
Mhm.
trying to do too much guesstimations now at this stage, but it's fun. It's fun. But that would be and then, as well as that, coming from a graphic design background, they're always a jack of all trades anyway. You know what I mean? They'll do logo designs, they'll do web designs, they'll do everything under the sun. And the only thing I will say is I absolutely hate. I can't stress this enough. I hate doing video. It drives me
Okay.
insane. I
Already.
absolutely hate it. But it's that is just that's a means to an end. You know what I mean? It's just the one true social media at the minute that does actually want you to succeed. It doesn't give you an easy way to succeed, but YouTube, I find, is the only one that really gives you something else. You know what I mean? The rest of them is just a high score. Like, you have a big following, I'm trailing behind you, and apart from like the likes and stuff like that, there, unless we're learning something new from photography, it's just a high score. We might as well be playing the PlayStation, and that's the way I always view social media. Is At least if social media disappears tomorrow, I have a life skill I've learned for it. I've tried to
Mhm.
better myself. I fought with it so often, and I'm always fighting with it. I'm trying to impress the algorithm so it can go and show it to people. It's kind of like, oh, he knows what he's doing. Let's go and show him. And you're always thinking not to do the trendy thing, but just do like the wow, that's cool. And it makes you fight to think of
Mhm.
something different and do something different and work harder. And I'm not one of these ones that wants to make excuses. You know what I mean? If I can't do something, just times like I can't play double bass on heavy metal. I just physically can't do it. It just, my head won't let me do it. So it's just one of those things. I don't get bogged down by it. Just don't try and do that. So I do the same with photography. I just keep going until I find something that just is completely giving me a roadblock. And so far I haven't found it. And the thing as well is that um, having that diversity, like on Friday I was photographing a new shop for a big furniture brand in a family furniture brand in Ireland, and today I was in a whiskey auctions company doing a recce for some photos that they want, and it's just promoting whiskeys. They're launching these charity bottles. They have 1,000 bottles, and they want to do some hero shots and all the rest. And being able to adapt to all of that. Now, in hindsight, I probably could have gone today and actually just shot them. When as soon as I got in, I was like, I know what to do here. I know what to do here. Have you thought about doing some headshots as well in it? And there's that flexibility. You know what I mean? I can offer that. So when I go into a thing, I'm not just going in going, I can only shoot the bottles. I can shoot you too. I can do you as well. Come on, let's get you here. We'll get some nice shots. It doesn't
Bring the
have to look like a
whiskey.
press photo. Exactly, yeah, and it doesn't have to be shot like a press photo. It can be shot like a gorgeous editorial, and that's what I'm after. I love them all to be their own single piece, but then when they work together as well, they work as a cohesive thing as well. So,
Well, you're creating a
um,
story too, right? I think you
yeah,
can.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but the only problem is the hardest part I've had with it is trying to market myself because everyone wants you to be everyone wants you to be pigeonholed.
Specialized.
They want to know what little box to put you into, and you're like, oh, I can fit into all of these, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like a piano player here. Do you know what I mean? I can hit all the keys, and it's just trying that there because there is that attitude that a jack of all trades is just he's okay at things. And I
Mhm.
don't want to be like that at all. I would much rather be the person who's just like, get Duffy in. Duffy can do it. Doesn't matter. He can get it. He can do it. And that's the way it was when I was drumming. Get Duffy in. He can do it.
You can do it. So, out of all of the different genres, which one is your favorite, and which one is the most challenging for you?
Landscape photography.
Landscape.
Both. Ah,
Oh.
yes, yes. It's the most difficult going. Like product photography is like product photography can be. It can be as difficult as you want it to be.
Hmm.
But landscape photography is difficult no matter what. It doesn't matter what you do. You know what I mean? It's challenging in every aspect. If you want to do fine art, long exposures, now you're talking about 4 minute exposures. You have to remember you need to put in long exposure noise reduction because your sensor is going to heat up. You don't want all those hot pixels. So you've that. You're trying to judge where the sun will be, where the moon will be, what's the weather conditions. The weather changes every 10 minutes in Ireland. It's ridiculous at the minute. So we had a heat wave last week, 26 degrees in Ireland. That's Celsius, sorry, 26 degrees Celsius in Ireland in September. And now it's freezing cold. Now it's down to 13 degrees and raining. And it's just July rain for the entire month. It's just, you can't plan anything. So landscape photography, at least where I live, is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But it's so rewarding when you go to somewhere and you're like, oh, I got it. And it doesn't matter. It could be that you get the sun in the shot, or you get a long exposure, so the sun doesn't have to be in the shot. If you're going for long exposures, you're more than likely going to succeed a lot more than I would be when I'm trying to get the sun in it. But still, in all, you want those conditions. You're looking for that
Mhm.
composition that's going to just sing to you. So what I call, because the way I'm set up differently as well. I've got two businesses, so I've got the commercial side and got the landscape. So I'm an artist. I'm a registered artist in Ireland for the landscape photography, and then I'm a commercial business for the commercial stuff. So they're two separate entities. So I call the landscape photography the hobby within the job because I don't really care if it doesn't pay for the year because it's not designed to pay for the year. But if it pays for itself, cool. And
Great.
I enjoy it the most. I think the next one then it's a toss up between headshots and product photography. I
Hmm.
like I like the headshots because I get to take the piss of people. I like the product photography because I love the graphic design element to it. And I love
Hmm.
thinking like that and then just the problem solving with the lighting and the composition and trying to get that, because I will overcomplicate things as well. I'll fight with myself to keep it
I think
simple.
we all
But
do. We all do.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
part of
I
our
like I
job,
like
too,
it.
right? Because we want to challenge ourselves. I found, like,
Yeah.
if you just, I found, like, even with the headshot photography, like, I remember when I started this whole thing, the most important thing for me was the gear and the lighting, right? And then when you start
Mm,
really digging more into this, and then you start kind of exploring face expressions and then posing and clothing and backgrounds, and then, then becoming this, oh my god, like there's so much more into this than just
yeah.
the gear and the lighting. You can really push this to completely different levels. But again, I like to challenge myself because you just don't know what you're going to get out of this, right? And this whole this wow factor which you might get by trying new things and experimenting, that's what is like addiction to me, right? Like, trying things
Oh, big time.
which
Big
um
time. And I cursed your name out on a shoot before. I was like, Rafal. Oh, because I'd seen them ones with the tinfoil.
yeah,
No, it's not called tinfoil in Canada. What's it called in Canada? It's called something
yeah,
else.
it's called tinfoil. Yeah,
It's tinfoil. Okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that is a shoot that I made a mess of because I didn't realize how much the light will actually bounce off the background. So
Hmm.
you really need to have your key light tilted down so you don't affect or have your background far enough away in
Hmm.
off the shot. So I didn't have a room long enough. I will the next time.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was cursing you. I was cursing you because I was just like, I'm stealing his idea. I like what he did. I want to do it. I
And
got
you
a
know
couple
what?
of
I
model
don't mind.
friends.
And this whole thing went just nuts. Like, this was the kind of the most surprising thing for me, because people kind of got this idea so deep that everyone was trying to do this because it was like inexpensive. The effect was pretty cool. um I even got, like, believe it or not, one day I received an email from Iraq. There's some, like, an art school, and the teacher was trying to kind of copy this idea, and he was teaching the student how to do it. And he's like, "Hey man, I barely speak English. I know a little bit, but I love this, what you've done with this tinfoil, whatever. And I would like to teach this my students." And there's just the girls. So he's like, could you help me to kind of like understand how this whole thing works and what you've done? I'm like, man, no problem. I can even jump on call with you and we can discuss this, because this is like so humbling to me too, that someone from so far away is trying
Yeah.
to do this copy this concept and then teach
Me too.
somebody else. It was amazing. Yeah, it was kind of neat.
I didn't get calls like that. I've gotten a DM before from someone who was teaching in Brazil, but it wasn't
Mhm.
photography. They were teaching English and they were using my accent as a way to test
Okay.
how much you could understand English because I speak very fast. So
Absolutely.
mine had nothing to do with photography. They were like,
You know what?
"Here, you want to test this?"
Believe it or not, before I moved to Canada, I was in States for a couple of
Mm,
years, and I worked with this guys from Ireland, and I couldn't understand it. Like, my English at that time was pretty bad too. Like, I was just
yeah, yeah,
starting off, and he was like speaking so fast that I'm just like, first of all, slow down, and try to talk to someone, like, I'm completely dummy because I can't get it right. And then after a while you can get used to it. But I remember, like, sounds like English, but I have no idea what he's talking about. So that was kind of interesting.
yeah. Even for us, there's like down in like so for anyone who doesn't know where I am, I'm halfway between Belfast and Dublin, right at the
Mhm.
border on the east coast. So then you then the west coast down to Kerry and Cork, like mutter and mumble is the best way to describe those two counties because they just don't have time to do anything else. They want that conversation to be finished and done and gone. So they'll
Yeah.
run all the words, and it's just like I can understand them, and I'm like going, if I was to spell the word the way you said it, you not saying that word. Like someone in Kerry, it was a friend of mine's wife was saying something. She's from Kerry, she's from Tralee, and she went to say the length of like something, the length of it,
Mhm.
and she went the lint, as
The
in
lint.
lint from a washing machine, and I'm like, the what? Lint? What? That's lint. Lint. That doesn't make any sense. What did she just? Paul. Never mind. But what did you just say? Lint? And she went, yeah, the lint of it. The lint of it. And I'm like, the length of it. Oh, right. Yeah, I can see why everyone else can't understand you. He was just like, oh,
That's
just,
interesting.
oh,
Cool. So tell me, let's kind of explore this a little bit thing, and let's
mm,
talk a little bit about AI. I want to touch this topic because this is one of the most request, I don't know, subject people want to talk about it. So, are you
mm.
using any AI in your photography? Are you playing with it? Like, what's your approach to it? It seems like people have two completely opposite opinion. I found, there are people who love it and they want to explore it, they want to see it, what this can bring to the table, how we can use it. But also I've noticed that there's a lot of people like really against it. Like, even I think a couple days ago I have this conversation with someone, and they're just blaming me that I'm even using this, right? I'm like, okay, you
Silly.
cannot
That's
stop
silly.
this. Yeah, that's silly. But
No, no.
like, I know people have different reactions. So what's your approach? Like, how you look at this whole thing? Do you think it's gonna change the dynamic of photography? It's gonna bring new tools to the table, or this is gonna be total disaster for our industry?
Um, so I
Let's
think
unpack
I
this.
think yeah, like all it is, right, is all AI is going to do is going to make what CGI had already more
Yeah.
accessible to those who couldn't afford it. You look at IKEA. IKEA doesn't have real photography in its brochures. Never has. It's always been for a long time. It's been CGI, and definitely since I was a graphic designer. So in the last 10 years, IKEA's brochures have been, it's been well known and well documented. There's no real photos in it, and it's all CGI. And I worked in a flooring company, and we worked with CGI artists, and it's
Mhm.
great. It is absolutely fantastic. Now you got AI, you can do it for you, so you don't have to, you know, target an email to someone, wait a week, get it back, and say, "Oh no, actually, you know what? There's a repeating pattern here of the wooden floor. Can we just change that? Can we give you another section of that scan? Because we had a big 2 meter scan, so we could scan 2 meters of the floor. We'd send the photos on to you, and can we get this section on it? Now you can just do a prompt. Now you can just, and you're doing the exact same thing. I'm using AI for. I've been using Chat GPT for my website, so for SEO and stuff. I have used it a few times for my captions for Instagram when it's more marketed, marketing targeted type
Mhm.
posts. So when I was trying to promote a workshop I was doing, I wanted to just to test out and see, is it true that, if you had SEO or more search engine type optimized text, would your caption do any better? And we couldn't say it did or not, but it was pretty cool to see all the emojis and all the bullet points. I would never write like that. So that's really cool for it. I literally have not bothered me whole about Photoshop, and because it'll be there
Mhm.
whenever I need it, and by the time I go to need it, they will have refined it. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So in beta, I couldn't care for it. It's grand, cool. I just wish, if they are going to push that so hard, and I did mention this on a post that Photoshop put up, and they replied back to me. They asked me to send a DM, and they never replied back. But I did say to them, I was just like, if you're going to be pushing this so hard, maybe you should really focus on your selections, because your selection tools are just not there. They're really
Mhm.
not there. Even I was in a product shoot, on just an e-commerce product shoot, so white background, for a horse headband. And just with the conditions, it was a portable studio setup, so it wasn't going to be perfect white. And I was dependent on Photoshop to really bring in its A game to select this. And even a black, like a horse, the bridle, the whole bridle, even a black on a white background, I couldn't pick it up. There was loads of jagged
Mhm.
edges, and I was just like, "This is dirt. What is this?" No, and I used the cloud selection, and I was very disappointed by it. So I thought, okay, it's cool you're playing with the new toys, but just don't forget about the fundamentals here. You push them
Mhm.
on as well, and then bring the toys in. But we have to remember too that I think everyone's kind of overlooked this, is that Photoshop have said that they will, not Photoshop, Adobe have said, I kind of brand everything as Photoshop, just
Yeah.
because it was the first of them all. It was the first one that they owned. So yeah, no, Adobe have said that they are going to be doing a credit system of some sort,
Yes,
because
I
don't forget,
actually
like,
watched the
unlike
videos.
all, yeah, so like, I don't know, and I haven't read much more into it, but I just figured, okay, they're going to give us, like, not much wiggle room. Five maybe generative fills in a month, and then you need to pay for the rest, because you are using AI built off stock photography that is theirs. So there
Mhm.
is there is a license and all that there, and where Ireland and England and Europe aren't as au fait and kind of clued in to license fees and how that works. America and Canada really are, because like, I've spoken to plenty of photographers who hate the fact that in Ireland, when we're pricing jobs, we can't charge license fees for majority of our work, because companies just don't understand. It's really only the big massive companies, Guinness and Jemison,
Yeah.
that understand that kind of stuff. Everyone else underneath that is too small. Um, but yeah, but the only thing is, what I would say as well is, for those photographers who are getting tortured with the tire kickers coming in at the 400 €500 price range, they can't afford more, and they're looking to stretch your budget, stretch your time out as much as they possibly can. AI can really just get them to go away, just leave
Mhm.
you alone. You know what I mean? And just kind of go, do you know what we can do? We can get this stuff done for you, and then AI can do the rest for you, and then
Yeah.
and that will alleviate. So if you're smart with it, you could you could help yourself out as well, where you're still delivering quite a bit to the client, but the workload isn't nearly the workload for you is pretty much on par with what it should be, price
Mhm.
range. You know what I mean? So if you
Yeah.
work at it, but it is a thing that we're all just gonna have to work with. And I wouldn't see it as a hindrance. I look at it as a tool. It's going to be a really good tool, in the end. But I can see where people are giving out about it as well. Like, for me being a musician, and me being a heavy metal fan and stuff like that, there, it kills me to listen to what's in pop music right now at the minute. It absolutely kills me, because if
Mhm.
you see how it's built, if you think AI is bad, they've been at it with pop music since the early 2000s. Like it's hilarious. Sampling is like it would sampling in music would isn't allowed in photography. No way. You would not be allowed to take you would not be able to take a screenshot of me to here, I guess here, and plank me on one of your photos, Rafal, and then say it's mine. That's just, and that's literally what they're doing. Whatever way you want to think about it, like, you know, when it comes to rap music and stuff, they're getting old classic songs and then they're just talking over it in a rhyming format and then putting you know what I mean, and just like calling it something brand new, no reference to the original.
Wow.
Doesn't even fall under fair use. Like fair use comes under like if you edit something enough and it's unrecognizable from the original, there's fair use. It doesn't even like Daft Punk do that, but a lot of them don't. The best example is P Diddy with the "Every Breath You Take" sample.
Mm-hmm.
He has to pay what Sting $2 million a year for the rest of his life because of how much they breached copyright. I wish more artists would actually defend themselves like Sting did, but yeah, I would agree with photographers when it comes to that kind of side of things. You do need to protect the art. You could lose yourself with it, but everyone is feeling the same. This is the thing with music. They were kind of kicked at for anyone who kind of tried to defend it were kicked at and mocked. You know, Metallica, Madonna, and all with the Napster days. They were all made fun of, and now look where they are. There's no money to be made from streaming. So, but the thing is, this time around with AI, everyone's on the same board. Everyone's kind of like, "Whoa, hold on, whoa, we could lose everything." But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be as bad. But definitely for photography, we could use it as a tool, and then there'll be times that you don't need it at all.
Yeah, you brought quite a few interesting points. I never, because like seeing this from the music perspective,
Yeah.
also can be transferred to photography. But it kind of like my question is like, how are we going to be able to even filter the good stuff from bad stuff, right? Because now we are flooded with images, with music. It's just so much of it. There's no, like, even for me, like I really love listening to podcasts, but there's so many of them nowadays
Yeah.
that you don't even know what to kind of like where to start, because there's just so much of it, right? There's some really good ones, there's some bad ones, and I think the same with the photography. Like, back in the
Yeah.
days, there's just, I don't know, X amount of photographers, they're doing their work. Now, like, everybody's a photographer, right? The same in music, like you can, I don't know, create music on your phone. So it's kind of fascinating, like how we're going to be able to absorb all this data and all those informations, all this art, which is just coming from literally everywhere, right? And then now with the AI, we're going to pile this even to completely different level, right?
Yeah, but the only thing is, so far, anyone who's been really pushing the AI thing, they've been upfront about it. It's not as I don't think people have been as I don't want to say sneaky because it's not sneaky because it's who are
Mm-hmm.
we to say how you do your job and how you post and what you say. So there's no police in this. You know what I mean? Like, and we're not saying that we should be the police either, but like there have been a lot of times where you see a photo and you're like, oh, that looks like a composite. Like there was a photo of Black Valley in Kerry, and it had the Milky Way. So it's this very, very famous valley in Kerry with
Mm-hmm.
a old haunted looking house, and at the back of it then there was the Milky Way coming straight down. I was straight on to photo pills going, I can't believe when in the year can we get this? Oh, and then the realization.
But do you think we even have any kind of I don't know, some reality when it comes to photo? Because nowadays everything is like somehow retouched or edited. Because even if you're taking,
Yeah,
let's say, image with your phone or a cell phone, whatever, um, the phone itself, it does some kind of own color correction and all this crazy stuff, right? So
you just have to
what
embrace
is
it.
how we can draw the line? Because I even did this little article lately about all these filters when it comes to
Mm.
portraits and headshots. It's nuts right now, right? Like, you can take anybody and they don't even have to have a makeup, and you can just apply everything by filters. And I know it's a
We will
beginning.
go through a movement, though. There will be a movement. There will be a movement soon enough where it will counter that. To go back to the music side of things, in the 90s, this happened. It was called grunge. There was
Okay.
players there who didn't appreciate or didn't want to have to be able to be a virtuoso, doing solos and stuff. and they got rid of it. Nirvana and the rest of them got rid of it. They were like, we don't need that. It's too
Okay.
polished. It's too refined sounding. We just need it to be just the way it is, just more wholesome and the way that we have it at home. You know what I mean? So that was the grunge movement in the 90s. We could definitely easily see that happen, where you would see it happen in design, in graphic design, in 2011 to 2013. We have skeuomorphism, which was that Web 2.0, which was, if you remember, the iPhone 4, iPhone 5, the iOS for that. Do you remember where your calendar app looked like an actual physical calendar, even to the textures of leather and paper and stuff? It was ridiculous. And like, we had to be like, I was a designer back then. The details of using gradient maps and being smart with, drop shadows and inner glows, and it was just ridiculous. And then the flat design came, and that's where we are still. And we had the long shadows
Mhm.
that lasted for about a year. We have that currently in product photography. Long shadows is in right now. So that whole harsh light, that whole harsh lighting trend, for me, that's a kickback to 2013. When it came
Okay.
to logo designs, you could actually put the two together. I think actually it could work together nicely. A logo with a long shadow working with a product photography with a long shadow could work. But these things come and go. At the minute, we have, when it comes to the product photography, that whole single lighting, harsh lighting, that simple lighting, that simplicity is
Mhm.
massive at the minute. So that could be the thing. That could be what we could see coming over the next couple of years. With countries like Norway bringing in laws that you have to stipulate if you have any edits done to your promotional work, because of what's been happening with filters and stuff with influencers pushing the cosmetic side of things, saying, "Look at my skin, look how good my skin is," and it turns out they have a filter on and it doesn't even look like them. So Norway brought in
That
that law.
that's the
Other,
crazy part. Like, this is not like
yeah,
the funny thing. I even drove one day and there is some banner, and they're like some skincare facility where they do all this crazy stuff, and I see that it's like you can smell the Photoshop from miles, even seeing this, right? And then
yeah,
there's some advertising about healthy skin. I'm like, you know what? M- Yeah, there was a lot of Photoshop there. The
I don't
Photoshop
do it.
was
I
yeah.
don't offer it. I offer the basics. I use like a little bit of like -20 texture and -11 clarity with an AI mask in Lightroom. And if you want more, I can do the high frequency separation, but I'm going to charge you through the hilt because I don't want to do it. And that's
Mhm,
the reason. It's boring. It takes long, and I just don't want to do it. And I
mhm,
don't overly agree with it. I never do the pinch in, the whole liquefy. Don't agree with it at all. I don't agree with the ethics of it. So I've been accused of being an amateur. Um, for having that attitude. And I'm like, so well, look, we're all entitled to our opinions, and it was for a cosmetic brand, and I'm like, going, what you're selling, I think, is kind of false advertising by bringing this in. So, you
mhm.
know, um, so I
It's
was just
kind of
like, look,
interesting because the inquiries I've been getting sometimes from people to fix things are just insane. It's like your plastic surgeon. Like, they tell you to do things which
yeah,
is like, I don't know, it's ethical for me to do that, but the tools are there, right? But depends
yeah.
what the image is used for, but I think we really reached the point where it's kind of insane what people asking you to do as a photographer to some of those. I'm not talking about the product photography. It's more the
Yeah,
portraiture
yeah.
and all
But
that stuff.
even with the product photography, you can be asked to get asked to do some silly cleanups. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the product actually has that. Every one of your products has that little ding. That's a machine. That's a machine. You need to keep that in. I
Mhm.
think, but there's, you can get them ones who just want to be, it just has to be like so like fake, superficial, and it's just, yeah. But then again, like with my like that attitude of like how much Photoshop has gone into the photo, because of
Mhm.
that attitude, especially when I was doing the product photography, I went out of my way to do it in camera. Went out of my way to do it in camera. There was one I did where I took my snare drum, I had a vintage snare drum, and I stripped it and did an exploded
Mhm.
view of it. I spent 10 hours hanging it. Now, the
Oh,
better thing to do was just to put it and just maybe there, maybe that, and do a couple of options. Okay, next section,
wow.
and
Mhm.
then bring it all in. But no, instead, I hung the whole thing, left hang for an entire day, and then went back to shoot it. And the reason I left it for an entire day was to make sure there was no movement in it at all, that it was perfect. And when I came in the next day, it also tested to see would it stay, and it did. It stayed, and I got the photos. I got some great behind the scenes photos, and everyone was kind of guessing, kind of like, oh, you must have done that in Photoshop. Swipe. Oh. oh, there it is. It's hanging in the studio. So,
Mhm.
and it taught me loads of different things, like how to get rid of. It teaches you more on the cleanup side of things, the hide stuff,
Mhm.
with all the fishing line that was, because the fishing line was everywhere, and the masking tape and all, like it was just everywhere.
This is also kind of interesting because people have no idea sometimes how much work goes into it, right? Which is fascinating
Oh,
because as you said, you spend 10
mad.
hours on like one image, and people see
Hanging
the
it.
final. Yeah, people seeing the image for like 1 second, and they're like, oh, I don't like this, right? Oh, I just
Mm.
there's this could be better, this could be done different way,
Yeah,
and you just like you do it then, right? Like it's just kind of interesting.
I have a whiskey one. I did in a in one of those sipping glasses. So
Yeah.
the standard of the sipping glass is the Glencairn. So this is called Tua glass, and the bottom of it's shaped like Skellig Michael. So that's the island that was used in Star Wars. Anyway, my ops triggers had set me not a product placement. They had sent me this splash unit to test out, do a
Mhm.
video on. And I was like, cool, I'll do something. And I was trying racking my head to kind of go, I don't want to just bring out a bowl and like milk and food coloring and do, because everyone does it. And I thought, what would be cool is to have the actual splash, what do you call it, collision
Mhm.
inside a whiskey glass, and also don't use water, use actual whiskey. So
Mhm.
5 hours, 400 photos, and all I got was three usables,
Yeah.
two splash collisions, and a clean. I was smart enough to shoot a clean plate. Always shoot a clean plate. Never not shoot a clean plate. Get it all set up and done before you do anything. You get it clean. Just get it nice, just so you can. It just makes it easier for the cleanup afterwards, because every time it splashed, I had to wipe the inside of the glass before I
Mhm.
continued. And it took me ages to get the timing of the first drop to come down, and as it comes up, the second one hits it. And as you're doing that and you're hitting the amount of liquid that's in the dropper unit decreases. So the PSI, the pressure needs to change. And it's just, and there's no, well, this was the Mark One anyway. There was no real instructions to it. They didn't really have a guide to it. Like, if it's at this level, you should be at like 30 PSI, or I don't even know I can't even remember what the measurements are. This is
Mhm.
a good couple of years ago I did it, and whoo, it's a beautiful photo, but I would not be pushed to do it again.
Well, you
This
just
is like,
watching
it's
at the photo just make you sweat, I guess. Hey, nowadays.
oh, it's just like, to do it again. I would charge a fortune just I would love it. I would love it if there's any whiskey companies watching this here that want it, get in touch.
Absolutely. Yeah,
but
for sure.
you know,
So what
but it's
was your
great. It
most
sits.
so what was your most challenging project you had that you were like the most frustrated with? That was that one, or it
That
was
no,
no,
that's not even close. That's not
not
even
even
close.
close?
That was only five. That was 5 hours. I had one that lasted 18 months. It was a
Oh
landscape
wow.
photo. Yeah. So yeah, I do put myself down for these kind of wild ideas, and most of it usually comes down to because I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm just trying to figure it out. And I have an idea of what I want to do, and I don't know if it's going to work out. So I have a couple of stories like that. That whiskey one's an example. The snare drum is another example. The biggest one is what's known as the sundial. So there's a monument uh, in a seaside village just outside the town I'm from, so in a place called Black Rock, and they have a monument there, and it's of a woman. It's shaped like this. There's a woman diving, and then it's on a sundial. And I thought, what better way to depict a sundial than show what it sees? And it sees a sunrise,
Hmm.
and it sees a full moonrise. So I checked it on Photo Pills, love that app, and just by chance, because it's not actually directly east, it kind of a little bit southeast. It has an opportunity that you can see twice in the year. The sun will rise, and a full moon will rise, and you can have it. And there's like three benches on it, and you can line it up with the benches. So I have it fully lined up and all that there. But the first time we did it, didn't work out. Second time we did it, I slept in. I missed my alarm for the sunrise, and it didn't line up. So then the third time, and it took 18 months. So the first one was in May. The following was the
Wow.
following May, and it was only the second time round that I copped on. Oh yes, if the the sun goes this direction halfway through the year, it has to come back. Because I didn't realize before I got into photography that the sun doesn't rise east and it doesn't set west. It goes between south, south, east, and west to north, north, east, and west throughout the year for 6 months. So if it goes to this direction, it has to come back. So on the return is September. So that was on the third occasion was the second year. So May 2016, May 2017, September 2017, and it worked out great. I'd say it's the best performing photo I've ever had. I'd say so, and it performed better on Facebook than it did on Instagram. 100,000 reach or something like that there, and I had no following on Instagram. On Facebook, I probably had about maybe 4,000 followers at the time. I didn't have much, but it's my pride and joy. I absolutely love it, and it was a wild concept. And the only other time I've had a wild concept like that is I wanted a moon to set behind a particular lighthouse, but where you have to go is a caravan park. And I live in the south of Ireland, and to drive up north of Ireland, where we have different license plates and different cops. The cops in Ireland are unarmed. The cops in the Northern Ireland are armed. And so July, 4:00 in the morning, I'm getting close. I leave Dundalk, it's clear skies. I get to Newry, it's clear skies. I get to Ross Trevor, it's still clear skies, and now I can see the moon over the mountains, and I'm going to what's known as Carlingford Lough. And as I get to where I need to go, there's a Cranfield Beach. I take the turn off, and it's covered in fog. You can't see in front of me. I nearly missed the turn. Blues, all blues behind me. And I'm like, oh, here we go. So they wanted to see license, everything. And I'm just like, you just play along, you know what I mean? If they ask you for your license, give your license. Just show them it, you know what I mean? Don't give them cheek. I give them cheek. And they were like, where are you going? And I'm like, to the beach. They were like, at this time of night, in this weather, a white van going to a caravan park, and you're Southern Reg, you look like you're going to rob the place. And they said, look, we're pulling you over because there's been issues with robbery. And I went and just threw an amount of F-bombs and C-bombs, saying, I hope you catch them. I won't say it now just to say it, but yeah, you get the point what I was saying. So you one kind of started laughing, and then was just like, oh, maybe he's an innocent party here. So I told him, he goes, look, I'm not even going to lie to you. Right here beside me, I have a van. I don't even put the gear in the back. I leave it in the front seat. On the floor of the front seat. And he goes, there's my camera gear. You're more than welcome to look at it. Just be careful. It's expensive. But I goes, I can't show you what I'm going to do because nobody has photographed this before. But I want to get the moon, which is currently setting. I want to set it behind Haulbowline Lighthouse. She wasn't even aware there was a lighthouse in this place. And there's a big massive one out in the middle of the loch. But where I was, you'd only be 900 meters away from it. Where if I was on the south side, the Republic of Ireland side, you're 3 kilometers away. So a 600 mil lens, it's just too far away. So I had to return the next month because the fog. But they wanted to arrest me because. Yeah, so it's just it was a funny night. And I said to them, look, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going. I think that fog could burn out. It didn't. But they left me. They were like, we've no reason to detain you. You're not saying anything wrong, but it just sounds ridiculous. And I was just like, well, when it pans out, it'll look great. And again, love it. One of my favorite photos. It's on my phone. It's just I have it on the background on my phone. Love it.
Nice.
Such a photo to have, But yeah, it was it was an ordeal to get it. I went back the next month. It was fine. There was no cops and there was no clouds. And I was between my first test photo and my last photo, I had to walk 200 meters to keep the moon in line with the lighthouse, and a 10-second gap between each photo as well, just so the long lens, because you couldn't have image stabilization on it because it's a long exposure, loads. But I definitely do again.
Perfect. So let's jump to different topic, and because also on your YouTube channel you do a lot of educational videos. So you're doing a lot of reviews and all this stuff. So how did you get into that? And if you could just tell me a little bit what the products you like to review and which ones you don't.
So how I got into it was I learned everything I know off YouTube. So I studied music in college. that's it. Everything else is self-taught. Graphic design is self-taught,
Mhm.
and even when we would be doing projects, working as a graphic designer, we'd be on YouTube learning it. So we have
Mhm.
dispersion. So if you want to do the at the end of the Avengers movies, the Infinity War and that, with the dust off, with the that's called dispersion.
Mhm.
There's tutorials going back 15 years on YouTube that you can learn
Mhm.
how to do that. And we did it for a campaign. It works great. And so I've always learned off YouTube. So I was just like, well, if I'm going to learn, I wouldn't mind giving it back
Mhm.
and, make it, because there's not many people from Ireland doing it. I
Okay.
don't even know if there is anyone that's doing it. So I was just like, I have enough to show, because for me, I'm a little bit different in the fact that I came from the graphic design background,
Mhm.
came from the drumming background as well, so the audio as well. So for me, I just had something different to bring to the table. That I have a nice mix of different. Um, I just have a different way of thinking, different way of working. So I just thought I'd
Mhm.
bring something different to the table. When it came to the gear reviews, I'm just gear nuts. So I am just absolutely gear mad. So I always was, probably the musician in me. You go nuts for gear, like so, and I have the gift of the gab, clearly. So,
Mhm.
I have no problem talking, and it's just one of those things I had an interest in, and like you don't like let's be honest, you don't earn much from YouTube, like, you know what I mean. You really have to love it for it to
Yeah. Yeah.
continue on. I've 8,000 subscribers or something like that on it at the minute, like, you know what I mean. It's not like, like I'm paying the mortgage with it, like,
Mhm.
you're not, and the wife will be saying to you, like, what have you got on this week work wise, and you might not have anything, with the commercial work. You might go 3 weeks with no work, so
Mhm.
you just fill your time up with YouTube videos, and you're like, oh, you're working on YouTube videos, and it's just like you get the attitude of kind of like, it's a bit of a time waste, isn't it? But I really enjoy it. I don't really do it for the gear, but if I am going down that road of getting equipment off companies, I would rather get equipment that I can use for myself and better myself on it. Like, for instance, this is a new product that was sent out. Maybe I shouldn't talk and twist it at the same time, so we'll show it here.
That's okay.
It's a nice microphone,
Mhm.
really nice microphone. Just getting used to it and all that there, like, and but for I don't really have a preference of products. I don't really have
Mhm.
a preference of products at all. If it's intuitive enough, I'd be interested in looking at it. As long as what I don't like is, I don't like products that don't work. I got a lens recently from a company, and I went nuts when I saw
Mhm.
that it didn't work. And like, it shouldn't even be on the market. It should not be on the market for the flaws that are on it. Like,
So how
I
you
couldn't
deal
believe.
with situations like this? Because I've been in quite often in those kind of where they send me some stuff and you just like I cannot say anything positive about it stuff, like, and then it's just like you're not trying, you don't want to be rude to these people,
Oh
but
no, I did. I tore them to
you
shreds.
are all
I tore
so
them to shreds.
I'm
Yeah,
already Canadian because like here it's just like you're trying to be polite, but I got these lights a while ago, and man, like they work for 5 minutes and the battery, like one of them just battery just died on it and I couldn't even like recharge it, and the other one was just
yeah.
like making some noises and stuff. I'm like, I hope this is not going to even blow up at some point. But yeah, I said to them, like, I can send this back to you, but there's no way I'm gonna say anything about that stuff, and I'm not gonna even use it because it's just like, as you said, it shouldn't even be on the market, and like I don't even know who gave them the permission to even sell this stuff, but
Yeah, like this one is a tilt lens. So when you tilt it anywhere past 6 millimeters, which is nothing really in a tilt
Mhm.
in tilting, you go from vignetting to actually losing the image. You lose half of the image. So like it doesn't even have full image circle. Um,
Wow.
and in that one instance, they caught the full wrath of my temper, and I just sent I didn't hold back in the videos I sent them on DMs on Instagram. I was
Mhm.
just like, "What did you send me? What is this?" I'm no. In every other instance, if there's a problem, I'll go back to them. I had a fan sent to me from Nightcore, and they, the cine wind, the big
Mhm.
massive yoke. It literally arrived on Friday, and I
Okay.
wanted to get looking at it, and I thought it'd be fun. My daughter turned 2 on Sunday, so I thought it'd be funny to get the thing going and
Yeah.
and Korea.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be funny to get it going and just blow the face of her, and she
Yeah.
wouldn't know
Yeah.
what would happen. And I couldn't get it to work. And I was just like, oh, don't tell me. I'm after going and getting a lens last week that didn't work. Now I'm getting this. And what happened was, in my inquisitiveness, I took the protective screens off.
Mhm.
And it does say in the manual that they won't work with them without them on, but they have to be in a certain position. They have to be, the front one has to be at the front and the back has to be in the back. And I put them on the wrong way. And no matter what batteries I put on, because it only works with MPF batteries. So I had MPF 750s, I had MPF 970s, and then the set that they give me. And I went and charged the set that they give me for, until they were fully charged. And even when I tested them, I was just like, oh yeah, what? Like, and I was like, right, maybe it's the batteries. I tested the batteries on a GVM light that I have here as well, and it worked with the light. And I was just like, no. And then I figured it out, and it works great. But I was really cautious with the email, kind of going, am I doing something wrong? Let me know if I'm doing something wrong here. I think I'm doing something wrong, or are the batteries an issue? Is the unit an issue? So you give them the biggest benefit of the doubt first of all, to kind of address anything, and then but with the lens, there was no addressing to be had because that lens was false advertising, and I don't have the patience for that. So yeah,
Mhm.
but it's the only instance I was like, I don't like losing my temper, and I was so mad just because I was excited for that lens, because I was
Mhm.
just like, this lens is going to benefit my product photography something serious, because if you tilt that lens, you can get that infinite focus without having to do focus stacking. And even if you did have to do focus stacking, you can do a minimum amount of it. So I was like, this is going to benefit me so much because it can just free up. I don't have to have perfect lighting for the product. I can do a little bit of comping with lighting and all that there, so it frees me up to be more creative with or even just kind of just be a little bit lazy with the lighting and just use your bounce cards and then just make it up in Photoshop. um and then when I saw that happen, I was just like, oh,
Well,
give me strength,
yeah.
and the strength did not come.
Perfect. So, we're past the hour, but I have one more question for you.
Go
What
for it.
would be the advice to, photographers who are starting off? Like, you've been in this industry for quite some time. You've been quite successful. So what would be the advice you would give to, photographers who just starting off, they want to get into this industry and they want to be successful? We talk a little bit about the failure, but
Yeah.
what they can do to, kind of, I don't know, exist in this very competitive industry.
First thing is be patient. Be patient. I get people contact me all the time, and it's just like, and there's a kind of a demand that I need to go and review their stuff, and I'll review it when I get time and all that there. But just be patient with whoever you contact and be courteous as well, because they don't owe you anything. But and there are people out there who are not willing to give information, and you have to respect that too. So
Mhm.
you need to be patient and respectful for the people that you're approaching to get information. Like, people like myself and yourself, Rafael, we're very open, and you can see that from our pages. But there's other people there. You ask them, "That's a really cool photo. Where'd you shoot that?" And they won't tell you. And
Mhm.
don't even try and push it. Just leave at it and go somewhere else. Um, but you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to fail. But the the thing about failure is you need to pay attention as to where you failed so you can learn from it, and then you can grow. And that's the only way you'll grow. So it's just be patient, have an idea of what you want to do, and just try things. Don't be afraid to try. Look at me. I do headshots, products, landscapes.
Mhm.
You throw anything at me, and I'll give it a go, and I'll do as much research as I can towards it. When it comes to landscape photography, I would say 90% of your work is research
Mhm.
and planning. And if you can and you enjoy that, which I do, I thrive on the research and the planning side of things more so than the photograph. Yeah, I think that's what gives me such a kick out of it. It's just like, yes, I got the idea. Oh, it worked. You know what I mean? Yes, look at that. And prime example was not last week, the week before that, 2 weeks ago. I went to Malin Head, the most northerly point in Ireland, in County Donegal. It's 3 hours away from me. So for me to try and predict in the most unpredictable country in the world when it comes to weather, to try and get a sunset, a beautiful golden sunset in kind of like, I don't know, like a 2 o'clock, kind of on, if you think about a clock face, like kind of 2 o'clock and inwards, kind of on the 1/3. That's what I wanted. If you see the photo where I had the sun, it's exactly where I wanted it. Oh my god, it was clouded over on the way over. Like, it's a 3 hour 320 drive, and 2 hours in, and it was fully clouded over. I was just like, I wasted my time. And I got there, and I swear to God, the absolute delight that I had when I got it. And I just like, and I would say this as well: if you're doing landscape photography, get your photo, and then chill and enjoy the moment. Get your face out of that camera. Don't spend your entire time to guess going, this is great, I got my photo. And then
Mhm.
go into the camera bag and away home. You've wasted your time there. If you're at a gorgeous castle, if you're in Ireland and there's so many castle ruins, go explore them. Get some time there. Go spend extra time to make sure that you get your photo, and then give yourself some time to actually go and enjoy these places, because they might be hours away from you, and you may not have another chance to go and actually enjoy it. So while you're there, enjoy it. So I would always say, get your photo, sit back, chill for a bit, enjoy it, and at least you got two things out of that trip. You know what I mean? So that'd be what I would say. And when it comes to the rest of the stuff, just loads of stuff to be learned on YouTube. Endless amounts of
Mhm.
stuff you can learn. You don't need a brand new video to teach you how to do headshot photography. And look at what f-stoppers have an offer, and look at all the other websites that are selling stuff. The Peter Hurleys and stuff like that. I'm sure you've some of your own courses as well, Rafal. And like just be a sponge. Be a sponge. The great thing with me when I was a graphic designer was I worked for a company that didn't give me enough work during the day, but I was allowed to go on YouTube to upskill, and I spent my time watching
Mhm.
YouTube videos on photography. So, and I didn't give them it. I didn't give them an ounce of photography back because it wasn't in my contract. But that's another thing. But yeah, look, I told them. I was just like, I told them, I was just like, you have me bored out of my mind here. And they were like, go on YouTube. And I was like, all right, cool, but you're not going to enjoy this. And I was on photography all day long.
Man.
And but I still love nothing more than just going on. And the thing is, we've got YouTube on the TV now. Well, before, when I was doing it, we'd
Yeah,
be on our computers. But
that's
now you
true.
have your big TV, sit there, and just like with your pint glass of Guinness filled with blackcurrant cordial.
And learn.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? But like, there is no excuse. Get off the PlayStation and go learn, and just learn and learn and learn and learn. Learn, fail, learn, fail. That's the best way to go about it. You know what I mean?
That's
And
right.
there's literally nothing you can't do. It's the thing about photography as well is it's not like a musical instrument. It's nothing. There's nothing physical about it. There's nothing physically limiting you when it comes to photography. So you can do it. We've all. I would say you've been there as well. We've all been there where we've put our camera on a book or something else to prop the thing up. I have a battery propped up on a microphone box, just so it's not stretching the cable, so I can power this camera for this podcast. You know what I mean? We're always doing Jimmy rigs for everything. You know what I mean? So
Everything.
you can
Absolutely.
get the job done. You know what I mean? And you don't need the greatest of equipment. Sony ZV-E10 is greater than any camera that was out in 2014.
Mhm.
Even the top, the
Oh, yeah.
Canon
And they
5D
still
Mark
work,
IV,
right?
a Canon. Yeah, yeah. But like, if you look at what's on offer, a 700 euro camera will absolutely annihilate what was 3 grand back in the day. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
what we have on offer today, it may look
We're in a
and
good
sound
spot for
cheap.
sure. Yeah.
We're
Perfect,
in a,
Mark.
a privilege.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That
Lovely.
was pleasure chatting with you. I will link all your information so people can check it. Your Instagram, your website. I was actually just checking some of your stuff yesterday, and then you have some pretty incredible work. So yeah, people should definitely take a closer look because there's amazing work. And yeah,
Thanks.
thank you so much. And yeah, I hope we're gonna have this chat soon. And then based on your plans, I'm going to see you in Calgary in the couple weeks, right?
Yeah, I'll be. Yeah, we go for a pint. To
Yes,
crack.
absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you everyone for watching, and yeah, we'll chat soon.
Thanks. See you.